Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Music Beat Central. I'm your host, Hanan Iuliano, and whether you're joining me from Australia or somewhere else around the world, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. To all of our returning listeners, welcome back to the MBC fam. And if this is your very first episode, a very warm welcome. This is a podcast where we celebrate everything that makes music such an incredible part of our lives, from legendary artists and iconic albums to emerging talent, industry stories, and the moments that have shaped generations. This is where we go beyond the charts and discover the stories behind the music. Before we begin today's episode, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to every single one of you for your amazing support you've shown for episode 7, Anastacia, the music documentary. Creating my very first feature-length documentary was both exciting and rewarding, and seeing your messages, comments, and support reminded me exactly why I started Music Beat Central. To celebrate artists, their journeys, and the music that connects us all. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening, sharing the episode, and continuing to support this growing community. Every download, every stream, every visit to the website, and every message you send truly means the world to me. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Have you ever wondered why we love a comeback story? Why is it that when an artist returns after years away from the spotlight, we become invested all over again? Maybe it's because comeback stories remind us that success isn't always a straight line. Life changes, dreams evolve, challenges appear when we least expect them. And sometimes the greatest chapters of a career begin after people think the story is already over. Today's episode is all about those remarkable moments. We are celebrating artists who refused to give up, artists who overcame illness, personal struggles, changing trends, industry pressure, and even public doubt to rediscover their passion and reconnect with audiences around the world. These aren't just stories about returning to the charts. They are stories about resilience, about believing in yourself, about rediscovering your voice, and perhaps most importantly, about proving that it's never too late to write a new chapter. Whether it's returning after years away, reinventing a musical style, or overcoming unimaginable obstacles, comeback stories remind us why music is one of the most powerful forms of human expression. Because behind every great song is a person, behind every album is a journey, and behind every comeback is a story worth telling. Before we explore today's theme, let's take a moment to reflect on our previous episode. Last week, we celebrated the remarkable career of Anastacia in Music Beat Central's very first feature-length documentary. We explored this story behind one of the most recognizable voices in modern music. From the release of I'm Outta Love to worldwide success, sold-out tours, and her inspiring resilience in the face of serious health challenges, Anastacia showed the world what true determination looks like. Her career hasn't simply been measured by awards or record sales, it's been measured by courage. Time and time again, she's demonstrated that setbacks don't have to define the future. Instead, they can become the catalyst for an even stronger return. As I reflected on her journey after finishing the documentary, one thought stayed with me. Anastacia isn't the only artist who's experienced an incredible comeback. Music history is filled with inspiring stories of artists who refuse to let difficult moments define them. Some battled illness, some overcame addiction, others faced declining popularity, changing musical trends, or years away from the spotlight. Yet, somehow, they found the strength to return, not only with new music, but with renewed purpose. That's what inspired today's episode. There's something uniquely powerful about watching someone rise again. It doesn't matter whether you're a lifelong music fan or someone who simply enjoys hearing a good song on the radio. When an artist returns after overcoming adversity, their music often carries a new depth and authenticity. We hear more than just lyrics, we hear experience, we hear growth, we hear hope. And perhaps that's why comeback songs often resonate so deeply. They remind us of our own lives. Every one of us has faced moments where things didn't go according to plan. A career setback, a personal challenge, a health issue, a difficult decision, a dream that seemed just out of reach. The artists we'll celebrate today have lived through many of those experiences themselves. Their stories remind us that success isn't about never falling. It's about finding the courage to stand back up. And isn't that what music has always done? It lifts us when we're down. It gives us comfort during difficult times. It becomes the soundtrack to both our celebrations and our struggles. The greatest comeback stories remind us that sometimes the most beautiful music is created after life's hardest moments. Coming up next, we're going to begin our journey through some of the most inspiring comeback stories in music history. We'll start with a woman whose career changed the definition of resilience forever. A performer who didn't simply make a comeback, she completely reinvented what was possible. That's coming up after this. Welcome back to Music Beat Central. We talked about why comeback stories resonate with so many of us. They remind us that setbacks don't have to define who we are, they can become the beginning of something even greater. Throughout music history, there have been artists who not only returned to the spotlight, but completely redefined what success could look like. Our first story is one of the most inspiring in music history. If someone asked me to name one artist who truly represents resilience, one of the very first names that comes to mind is Tina Turner. Her voice was unmistakable. Her energy on stage was unmatched. But behind the success was a story of incredible strength. During the early years of her career, Tina Turner achieved worldwide recognition performing alongside Ike Turner, I think that's how you say his name. Together they released songs that became classics, including River Deep, Mountain High, and Proud Mary. To the public, everything appeared successful. Behind the scenes, however, Tina endured years of abuse and control. Eventually, she made one of the bravest decisions of her life. She walked away. Not with millions of pounds, not with a catalogue of assets, not with security. She left with little more than her name and the determination to rebuild her life. Can you imagine starting over after reaching international fame? Many people assumed her career was over. The music industry wasn't convinced audiences would embrace her as a solo artist. Some record labels even turned her away. For years, Tina worked tirelessly, performing wherever she could, refusing to give up on her dream. Then, in 1984, everything changed. She released the album Private Dancer. It became one of the biggest comeback albums ever recorded. Songs like What's Love Got to Do with It, Better Be Good to Me, and Private Dancer introduced Tina Turner to an entirely new generation of fans. She wasn't simply making music again, she had become one of the biggest stars on the planet. What makes Tina's comeback so extraordinary isn't just the commercial success, it's the message behind it. She proved that no matter your age, no matter your past, no matter how many people doubt you, it's never too late to begin again. That message still inspires millions today. One thing I've always admired about Tina Turner is that she never allowed hardship to become her identity. Instead, she transformed those experiences into powerful performances that connected with audiences all over the world. That's the magic of music. Sometimes the greatest performers or performances aren't born from perfection, they are born from perseverance. If Tina Turner taught us about resilience, Cher taught us the art of reinvention. Few artists have remained relevant across as many decades as Cher. Think about it for a moment. She found success during the 1960s with Sonny and Cher. She became a television star. She established herself as a solo artist. She conquered Hollywood. Then, just when people thought her biggest successes were behind her, she reinvented herself all over again. During the late 1980s, Cher released a string of hugely successful albums featuring songs like If I Could Turn Back Time. Once again, she dominated charts across the world, but perhaps her greatest comeback arrived in 1998, Believe. That one song changed everything. Not only did it become one of the biggest selling singles in history, it introduced innovative vocal production that influenced pop music for years afterwards. More importantly, it proved something incredibly powerful. Artists don't always need to chase trends. Sometimes they create them. Even decades into her career, Cher was still surprising audiences, still evolving, still taking creative risks. That's why she's remained one of the music's most enduring icons. I think that's one of the biggest lessons from Cher's career. Reinvention isn't about becoming someone else. It's about discovering new ways to express who you've always been. The artists who survive for decades are often the ones who never stop growing. Our next story brings us back to the artist we celebrated in our previous episode, Anastacia. When people first heard I'm Outta Love, they were introduced to one of the most distinctive voices in contemporary music. Powerful, soulful, completely unique. Her debut album became a global success, and she quickly established herself as one of the defining voices of the early 2000s. But her journey wasn't always easy. Throughout her career, Anastacia faced significant health challenges, including breast cancer, requiring immense courage and resilience both personally and professionally. For many artists, experiences like these might have brought an end to their careers. For Anastacia, they became another chapter in her remarkable story. She returned to recording, she returned to touring, she continued creating music for her fans around the world. What I've always admired most about Anastacia isn't simply her incredible voice, it's her determination. She has consistently shown that strength isn't about pretending life is easy. Strength is choosing to keep moving forward even when life becomes incredibly difficult. That message reaches for beyond music. It's something every one of us can relate to. And perhaps that's why audiences continue to connect with her after all these years, because authenticity never goes out of style. When you place Tina Turner, Cher, and Anastacia side by side, their stories are all very different. Different generations, different musical styles, different challenges, yet each of them remind us of the same truth. Success isn't defined by never facing obstacles. It's defined by how you respond to them. Music history is full of incredible comeback stories, but these artists remind us that determination, passion, and authenticity can outlast changing trends and difficult times. Coming up next, we'll continue our journey with more remarkable comeback stories. We'll explore how Johnny Cash rediscovered his career through one of the most unexpected collaborations in music history, how Robbie Williams found renewed confidence, how Pink continued to evolve while staying true to herself, and why Fleetwood Mac proved that sometimes a band's greatest chapter comes long after their first success. Stay with me, there's much more to come on Music Beat Central. Sorry, guys, I have a bit of the sniffles again. This weather has been changing continuously. It's raining here on Saturday morning here in Sydney. Well, I think it stopped now. And by the time you guys listen to this episode, I apologize for the late upload. Just it's been a busy week. So I appreciate the patience. All right, welcome back. So today's episode is all about resilience, reinvention, and proving that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I felt like I was about to sneeze there. That's why I went, ooh. All right. So let me start again. All right. So today's episode is all about resilience, reinvention, and proving that sometimes life's greatest achievements arrive when people least expect them. So far, we've looked at 3 extraordinary artists whose determination inspired millions around the world. Now, I'd like to introduce 4 more artists whose comeback stories remind us that success isn't always measured by where you begin. Sometimes it's defined by how you choose to begin again. There are very few artists whose influence stretches across so many generations, quite like Johnny Cash. During the 1950s and 1960s, he became one of country's music's defining voices, recording timeless songs like I Walk the Line, Ring of Fire, and Folsom Prison Blues. He built an incredible career that earned him worldwide recognition. But by the 1980s, things had changed. Musical trends were shifting. Radio was embracing new artists. Record sales slowed, and many believed Johnny Cash's greatest days were behind him. For someone who had spent decades at the very top, it would have been easy to quietly step away. Instead, something remarkable happened. Producer Rick Rubin saw something that others had overlooked. Rather than asking Johnny Cash to sound younger or follow the latest trends, Rubin encouraged him to do something much simpler. Be himself. The result was the American Recording Series. The albums stripped away unnecessary production and placed Johnny's unmistakable voice front and center. Listeners weren't hearing a legend trying to relive the past. They were hearing an artist who had lived a remarkable life and wasn't afraid to share every part of it. Then came one of the most unforgettable moments of his career, his haunting interpretation of Hurt. Originally written by 9 Inch Nails, Johnny transformed the song into something deeply personal. The accompanying music video showed images from throughout his life and career. It wasn't simply a cover version, it became a reflection on aging, legacy, loss, and gratitude. The performance introduced Johnny Cash to an entirely new generation. His comeback wasn't built on flashy production or commercial trends. It was built on honesty. Sometimes authenticity is the greatest comeback of all. One of the biggest lessons from Johnny Cash is that experience can become an artist's greatest strength. As we grow older, we don't lose our stories, we gain them. And when artists share those stories through music, listeners often connect even more deeply. Next, let's head to the United Kingdom. Few entertainers have enjoyed a career quite like Robbie Williams. After finding enormous success with Take That, Robbie left the group to begin a solo career. It was a huge gamble. Many questioned whether he could succeed on his own. Fortunately for Robbie, and for music fans everywhere, the answer was a resounding yes. Albums such as Life Through a Lens, I've Been Expecting You, and Sing When You're Winning transformed him into one of the world's biggest solo stars. Songs like Angels, Millennium, Rock DJ, Feel, and She's the One became classics. But even during those years of incredible success, Robbie openly spoke about the pressures of fame, mental health struggles, and self doubt. Like many artists, he experienced periods where stepping back became necessary. What makes Robbie's story so inspiring is his willingness to be honest. He has never pretended to be perfect. Instead, he has shared both the highs and the lows of his journey. Whether performing solo, reuniting with Take That, touring the world again, or releasing new music, Robbie continues to remind audiences why authenticity matters. His career demonstrates that asking for help isn't weakness, it's strength. And perhaps that's why audiences continue to connect with him after all these years. Music has always had the power to heal. Sometimes it heals the listener. Sometimes it heals the artist creating it. Robbie Williams reminds us that vulnerability can become one of an artist's greatest strengths. Our next artist didn't appear from the spotlight in the traditional sense. Instead, Pink has shown us that reinvention doesn't always require stepping away. Sometimes it's about continuing to evolve while staying completely authentic. When Pink burst onto the screen in the early 2000s, she immediately stood out. She wasn't interested in fitting neatly into expectations. She blended pop, rock, and soul with fearless honesty. Over the years, she has released countless hit songs, including Just Like a Pill, Who Knew, So What, Raise Your Glass, Try, and What About Us. But I should also add that when she sang that song, Let's Get This Party Started. I don't know why I forgot to add that in, so apologies on that. But what makes her career particularly remarkable is her consistency. She has continually adapted without losing the qualities that made audiences fall in love with her in the first place. Her concerts are famous around the world for their breathtaking aerial performances. While many artists might choose to simplify their live shows over time, Pink continues to challenge herself creatively and physically. She pushes boundaries, she takes risks, and she always puts her audience first. Perhaps that's why fans have remained so loyal throughout her career. She has never tried to become someone else. She's simply become the best version of herself. There's a valuable lesson here. Not every comeback has to follow a period of absence. Sometimes the greatest comeback is finding new ways to keep growing year after year. Our final story in this chapter belongs to one of the most fascinating bands in music history, Fleetwood Mac. Their journey has been anything but ordinary. Throughout the years, the band experienced changing lineups, creative differences, and personal relationships that were often under intense public scrutiny. Many groups wouldn't survive such challenges. Fleetwood Mac somehow turned those experiences into extraordinary music. Their 1977 album Rumours remains one of the best-selling albums of all time. What's remarkable is that many of the songs were written while relationships within the band were breaking down. Heartbreak became creativity, conflict became timeless music. Years later, the band continued to reunite, tour, and introduce their catalogue to entirely new generations of fans. Songs like Dreams, Go Your Own Way, Don't Stop, and The Chain continue to find new audiences through streaming platforms, films, and television. Fleetwood Mac remind us that even imperfect circumstances can produce extraordinary art. Sometimes creativity shines brightest during life's most difficult moments. What connects Johnny Cash, Robbie Williams, Pink, and Fleetwood Mac? Their stories are all different genres, different generations, different challenges, yet every one of them chose to keep moving forward. They didn't allow setbacks to define the rest of their careers. Instead, they embraced change. They trusted their instincts and they continued sharing their music with the world. I think there's something incredibly hopeful about that because whether you're a musician, an artist, a business owner, or simply someone chasing a dream, these stories remind us that one difficult chapter never has to be the end of the book. Sometimes it's simply the beginning of a great one. Coming up next on Music Beat Central, we'll continue our celebration of remarkable musical comebacks with more legendary names. Before diving into This Week in Music History, brand new round of music trivia and our artist spotlight, where we'll shine a light on some fantastic new music from Natalie Imbruglia, Gabriella Cilmi, The Calling, Ghostly Kisses, and Untamed NC. Don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more music to celebrate. Today's journey has taken us through some incredible stories of determination, resilience, and second chances. One thing I've realized while researching this episode is that no two comeback stories are ever the same. Some artists return after years away from the spotlight, others reinvent themselves. Some overcome personal challenges while others simply refuse to let changing trends define their future. As we continue, let's look at three more remarkable comeback stories that prove great music really does stand the test of time. There was a time when many people believed the Eagles would never perform together again. Following enormous success during the 1970s, with classics like Hotel California, Take It Easy, Life in the Fast Lane, and Desperado, tensions within the band grew. Eventually, the group went their separate ways. Fans wondered if they'd ever see the Eagles share a stage again. For years, it seemed impossible. Then, in 1994, something extraordinary happened. The Eagles reunited for the Hell Freezes Over tour. Interestingly, the tour's name came from an old joke made by one of the band members, who had once said the Eagles would reunite when hell freezes over. I love that. Thankfully for music fans around the world, it did. The reunion became a global success. It reminded audiences why the Eagles had become one of the greatest bands in rock history. Their harmonies were still breathtaking. Their musicianship remained world class. And perhaps most importantly, the songs had never lost their emotional connection with listeners. Even decades after they were first released, audiences continued singing every word. That tells you something about truly timeless music. Great songs never really disappear. They simply wait for the next generation to discover them. The Eagles remind us that sometimes time can heal old differences. Music has an incredible way of bringing people back together, not just artists, but audiences as well. Let's move from one legendary group to another. Take That became one of the biggest pop acts of the early 1990s. Their concerts sold out. Their songs dominated the charts. Fans around the world couldn't get enough. Then came the split. For millions of fans, it felt like the end of an era. Years later, something remarkable happened. The bands reunited. This time, however, something was different. They weren't trying to recreate the past. They embraced where they were in life. Albums like Beautiful World showed a more mature musical direction. Songs including Patience, Rule the World, and Shine became massive international hits. Instead of chasing teenage audiences again, Take That grew alongside the fans who had supported them from the beginning. That's something I really admire. Sometimes success isn't about trying to be who you once were. It's about embracing who you've become. Music grows with us. The songs we loved 20 years ago often take on entirely new meanings as our own lives change. Perhaps that's why Take That's comeback felt so genuine. They weren't pretending time hadn't passed, they celebrated it. Few moments in music history were as devastating as the loss of AC/DC's lead singer Bon Scott in 1980. The band faced an impossible decision. Should they continue, or should they call it a day? Many people believed AC/DC couldn't survive without their charismatic frontman, but after careful thought, the remaining members chose to carry on. They welcomed Brian Johnson as their new lead vocalist. What happened next became one of the greatest comeback stories in rock history. The band released Back in Black. Today, it's recognized as one of the best-selling albums ever made. Just think about that for a moment. An album created during one of the band's darkest periods became one of the most celebrated records in music history. Rather than forgetting Bon Scott, AC/DC honored his memory through their music. The album became both a tribute and a new beginning. Decades later, AC/DC continued performing to sold-out crowds around the world. Their story reminds us that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past. Sometimes it's about carrying the past with you as you build something new. Life isn't always easy. Sometimes we experience heartbreaking loss. The way AC/DC responded reminds us that even during our darkest moments, creativity can provide hope. Music has always had that remarkable ability. So far today, we've celebrated artists from different countries, different generations, different genres, yet they all share something in common. They didn't simply return, they returned with purpose. When people talk about comeback stories, it's often tempting to focus on chart positions or record sales. But I think the true measure of a comeback is something much deeper. It's connection. The artists we've talked about today reconnected with audiences because they remained authentic. They weren't trying to become someone they weren't. They embraced their experiences. They allowed those experiences to shape their music, and audiences recognized that honesty. That's why comeback stories continue inspiring us, because they remind us that every challenge carries the possibility of a new beginning. If there's one thing I hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. Never let one difficult chapter convince you your story is over. Whether you're pursuing a career, starting a business, learning something new, or simply trying to overcome life's challenges, remember the artists we've celebrated today. They all faced moments when people doubted them. Some even doubted themselves. Yet they found the courage to keep going. Who knows, your greatest chapter may still be waiting to be written. Coming up next on Music Beat Central, it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show. We'll take a journey through this week in music history, discovering some fascinating moments that help shape the soundtrack of our lives. After that, get ready to test your music knowledge with another round of music trivia. Before we wrap up with a very special artist spotlight featuring fantastic new music from Natalie Imbruglia, Gabriella Chilmi, The Calling, Ghostly Kisses, and Untamed NC. Stay right here, you won't want to miss what's coming up next. And welcome back. What an incredible journey we've been on today. We've celebrated artists who refuse to let setbacks define them, artists who found the courage to begin again, artists who prove that passion, determination, and authenticity can outlast almost anything. Now it's time for one of my favorite parts of every episode, This Week in Music History. It's amazing how a single day can change music forever. So let's take a trip back through time and revisit some unforgettable moments. Let's begin in 1981. This was the week when MTV officially launched in the United States. Its very first broadcast featured Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. Who remembers that song? I mean, I wasn't born yet. I was born about 2 years later after that year. But I know of this song when I was a young kid, obviously years later after the release. Looking back, it's hard to imagine a world before music television. For decades, MTV transformed the way audiences experienced music. Artists suddenly weren't just musicians. They became visual storytellers. Music videos became just as important as the songs themselves. Think of Michael Jackson's Thriller, Madonna's groundbreaking visuals, or Peter Gabriel's creative videos. MTV helped create unforgettable cultural moments that still influence artists today. Even decades after his passing, Elvis Presley remains one of music's most influential performers. Around this time each year, fans from around the world gather at Graceland to celebrate his life and legacy. It's a reminder that great music never truly fades. Each new generation discovers Elvis in its own way, whether it's Can't Help Falling in Love, Jailhouse Rock, or Suspicious Minds. His influence continues to be felt across every corner of popular music. When people talk about the greatest live performances ever recorded, one concert always enters the conversation, almost, rather. Queen's unforgettable performance at Wembley Stadium became much more than a concert. And I should say, but the famous greatest live performance ever recorded was actually Live Aid. So just wanted to point it out there. So yes, Queen's unforgettable performance at Wembley Stadium became more than a concert. It became music history. Freddie Mercury commands an audience of more than 70,000 people with incredible confidence and charisma. Millions more watched around the world. The performance introduced Queen to a whole new audience and remains one of the defining moments in live music. It reminds us that sometimes a single performance can completely reshape an artist's legacy. Here in Australia, we've always punched well above our weight when it comes to music. Artists like In Excess, John Farnham, Kylie Minogue, Natalie Imbruglia, Tina Arena, Guy Sebastian, and many more have taken Australian music to international audiences. It's something we should all be incredibly proud of. Australia continues to produce talented musicians who leave a lasting impact around the world. As an Australian podcast, it's always a pleasure to celebrate the incredible artists who call this country home. 20 years ago, most of us discovered new music by listening to the radio or buying CDs. Today, a new artist can release a song from almost anywhere in the world and instantly reach millions of listeners. Streaming platforms have transformed the music industry. Independent artists now have opportunities that simply didn't exist a generation ago. That's one of the reasons I love including artist spotlights on Music Beat Central. It's a chance to introduce you to fantastic music you may not have discovered otherwise. And who knows, one of today's independent artists could become tomorrow's global superstar. Now, let's see how well you know your music. It's time for another round of music trivia. Don't worry, there are no prizes, just bragging rights. Okay. All right, first one, guys. Which Tina Turner song became her first #1 hit in the United States as a solo artist? The answer is, What's Love Got to Do with It? I can't sing, so so it's What's Love Got to Do with It? All right, number 2. What was the title of Cher's worldwide smash hit released in 1998? Believe. Yes, you got that right. Number 3. Which legendary band released the album Back in Black? Yes, correct. AC/DC. Woo! Okay, and question number 4. Who originally recorded the song Hurts before Johnny Cash made his famous version? The answer is 9 Inch Nails. Yes. Question 5 for you guys. Finish this famous Eagles song title. Hotel. Of course, California. Got that right, guys? Question 6. Which Robbie Williams song has become one of the most loved sing-along ballads ever written? Angels, yes. Question 7. Which Fleetwood Mac song experienced a huge resurgence after going viral on social media in 2020? Dreams. It's an amazing how social media can introduce classic songs to an entirely new generation. Question 8. Which Australian singer launched her international career with the global hit Torn? Yes, Natalie Imbruglia. What does the DC in AC/DC refer to? It stands for direct current, while AC stands for alternating current, a nod to electrical power. You know, that part I discovered just now because I did not know that. So I learned something, like all of you guys out there have learned something about that. So we learned something together. Yay! In your opinion, who do you think has had the greatest comeback in music history? That's one question with no right or wrong answer. Everyone has a different artist whose story has inspired them. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Be sure to leave a comment or get in touch through the Music Beat Central website or social media. So you can get in touch with me at www.musicbeatcentral.com.au or at Music Beat Central on Facebook and Instagram. And you can also email me your requests if you'd like at info@musicbeatcentral.com.au. So well done if you got most of those right. Whether you answered one correctly or all of them, I hope you had some fun testing your music knowledge. Coming up next, it's time for one of my favorite segments on the show, our Artist Spotlight. Today, we'll be celebrating 5 fantastic artists and their latest music. Natalie Imbruglia with her new single, Just Drive. Gabriella Chelmy with her new single, Why Are You Hanging Around? The Calling and their powerful new release, Dust. Ghostly Kisses with the beautifully atmospheric Ease Your Mind. And Untamed NC featuring the emotional track Memories from their EP, Down. If you're looking for some incredible music to add to your playlist, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay with me. You're listening to Music Beat Central. And welcome back, guys. Alrighty. So, one of my favorite parts of every episode is shining a spotlight on artists who continue to create incredible music and inspire audiences around the world. Today's Artist Spotlight is especially exciting because we're featuring a wonderful mix of internationally recognized performers and outstanding independent talent. Some are beginning exciting new chapters in their careers, while others continue to build their musical journey with fresh releases. Whether you've followed these artists for years or you're discovering them for the very first time, I hope you'll find something new to add to your playlist. Let's begin with 2 incredible Australian artists. Natalie Imbruglia has remained one of Australia's most respected singer-songwriters for nearly 3 decades. Many of us first discovered Natalie through her international hit Torn, a song that became one of the defining pop records of the late 1990s. Since then, she's continued to evolve as an artist, releasing music that showcases her beautiful vocals, heartfelt songwriting, and unmistakable style. Her latest single, Just Drive, is another wonderful chapter in that journey. The song captures a feeling of optimism, freedom, and moving forward, wrapped in a fresh contemporary sound while still delivering the emotional honesty that Natalie is so well known for. It's also an exciting time for Natalie and her fans because Just Drive is taken from her upcoming album Algorithm, which will be released on the 4th of September 2026. So if you've enjoyed this latest single, you can pre-order or pre-save Algorithm now on all streaming platforms. JB Hi-Fi, I think Sanity if it's still around, basically anything that, where you're able to purchase the album. And be among the first to experience Natalie's brand new album when it's released. It's wonderful to see one of Australia's most celebrated artists continuing to create fresh music that feels both timeless and contemporary. And you can find out more on her official website, natalieimbrulia.com. Today's episode as well will all be featured in a blog entry, so don't worry if you can't write down or type the website, social media links. I will make sure to add the link in this podcast episode, like on all streaming platforms, so you won't miss that. And also I will share it, don't worry. I'll share it on all social media so you don't miss out. Staying here in Australia, our next spotlight shines on the incredibly talented Gabriella Cilmi. Many listeners will remember Gabriella's international breakthrough with Sweet About Me, a song that introduced her soulful voice and unique style to audiences around the globe. I don't know why I can't talk today. I'm so sorry. I think I'm all talked out. Very busy week, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast. Now, she's back with her brand new single, Why Are You Hanging Around? The track highlights her continued artist growth, combining confident songwriting with a mature and authentic sound that reflects just how much she has evolved as both a vocalist and songwriter. Listening to this release, it's clear that Gabriella continues to challenge herself creatively while staying true to the qualities that made audiences fall in love with her music. Even more exciting is the announcement of her upcoming album, Pure Love, which will be released on the 8th of October 2026. So you can pre-order Pure Love now, making this the perfect opportunity to support her as she begins another exciting chapter in her career. If you haven't heard already, Why Are You Hanging Around? I highly recommend checking it out along with the official music video. So you can find it, on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the streaming platforms. You'll be able to hear her song. But if you want to find out more, you can go to GabriellaCilmimusic.com and you can follow her at Gabriella Cilmi Official on Facebook. And I think it's about the same as well on Instagram. But you can find, as I mentioned, her song, Why Are You Hanging Around, on YouTube. And once again, all the links that I mention in today's episode will be put into a blog post shortly. Our next spotlight features a band that many music fans will instantly recognize. The Calling first captured hearts around the world with their timeless hit, Wherever You Will Go. And they've returned with a powerful new single titled Dust. What I really enjoy about this release is that it feels both familiar and fresh. It still carries the emotional songwriting and soaring melodies that fans have loved for years, while introducing a modern production that reflects the band's continued evolution. Alex Band's unmistakable voice remains at the heart of the song, delivering a performance that feels genuine, passionate, and full of emotion. Whether you follow The Calling since the beginning or you are discovering them for the very first time, Dust is definitely worth adding to your playlist. And you can go on their website for more details at thecalling.com. And as I mentioned time and time again, it will all be put on my blog page or blog entry on my website. Our next spotlight takes us into a beautifully atmospheric musical world. Ghostly Kisses continues to create music that's intimate, emotional, and incredibly immersive. The latest single, Ease Your Mind, is a stunning reminder that music doesn't always have to be loud to make an impact. The song gently surrounds you with delicate instrumentation, cinematic production, and beautifully expressive vocals that invite you to pause, breathe, and simply enjoy the moment. It's the kind of music that stays with you long after it finishes. If you're looking for something calming, thoughtful, and emotionally rich, I highly recommend giving Ease Your Mind a listen. And while you're there, don't forget to watch the official music video on YouTube. You can find out more at ghostrykissesmusic.com. Our final artist spotlight takes us back home to Australia, where we are shining a light on an exciting independent band from Newcastle, New South Wales. One of the things I love about Music Beat Central is supporting emerging Australian artists and helping introduce their music to listeners around the world. Today's recommendation is Untamed NC and their heartfelt track Memories, taken from their EP Down. Memories is a song that explores reflection, growth, and the experiences that shape who we become. It carries an emotional honesty that's easy to connect with, while showcasing the band's expressive vocals, strong musicianship, and thoughtful songwriting. What stands out most about Untamed NC is their ability to create music that feels authentic. Their song blends emotion and energy in a way that invites listeners to connect with the story behind the song, making Memories one of those tracks that stays with you long after it ends. As an independent band proudly representing Newcastle, New South Wales, they are a wonderful example of the incredible musical talent we have here in Australia. If you enjoy discovering new music and supporting independent artists, I encourage you to listen to Memories and explore the full Down EP. You might just discover your next favorite band. So you can find their EP on YouTube Music, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Untamed NC. Before we wrap up today's Artist Spotlight, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. At Music Beat Central, we're passionate about celebrating music in all its forms, from internationally acclaimed artists to emerging independent talent. Every artist has a story to tell, and every song has the power to connect with someone somewhere in the world. If one of today's featured artists introduced you to something new, please consider supporting them. Visit their official websites, follow them on social media, stream their music, watch their latest videos, and share their work with your family and friends. Every stream, every follow, and every share helps artists continue doing what they love, creating music that brings people together. And to make it even easier for you to discover today's featured artists, as I mentioned before, we'll also be publishing a Music Beat Central blog post to accompany this episode. The blog will include all of the official websites, social media pages mentioned throughout today's Artist Spotlight, so you can explore each artist and support their music with just a few clicks. Be sure to visit www.musicbeatcentral.com.au after listening to today's episode to read the accompanying blog and discover even more about the incredible artists we featured today. Who knows, you might just discover your next favorite artist right here on Music Beat Central. Coming up next, we'll bring today's episode to a close as we reflect on the incredible comeback stories we've explored and the lessons they can teach us, not just about music, but about life itself. Stay with me for the final chapter of Music Beat Central. As we come to the end of today's episode, I hope you've enjoyed taking this journey with me through some of the most inspiring comeback stories in music. Today's episode wasn't simply about chart success. It wasn't about record sales, and it certainly wasn't about fame. It was about something much bigger. It was about resilience. One of the reasons I love music so much is because every song carries a story. Sometimes that story is joyful. Sometimes it's heartbreaking, sometimes it's hopeful, and sometimes it's all of those things at once. When we listen to an artist, we often hear a finished song, but we don't always hear the years of hard work behind it, the sacrifices, the disappointments, the moments of self-doubt, the setbacks, the determination to keep creating when the path ahead isn't clear. Today's artist reminds us that every career has challenges. Tina Turner rebuilt her life and became a global icon. Cher continually reinvented herself and proved that creativity has no age limit. Anastacia showed incredible courage in the face of personal adversity. Johnny Cash rediscovered himself through honesty and authenticity. Robbie Williams reminded us that vulnerability can become strength. Pink demonstrated that growth comes from staying true to yourself. Fleetwood Mac transformed personal challenges into timeless music. The Eagles showed us that reconciliation is possible. Take That proved that growing with your audience can create a whole new chapter. AC/DC turned unimaginable loss into one of the greatest albums ever recorded. Different artists, different journeys, one common thread: they never stop believing in the power of music. If you've been listening today and you're facing challenges in your own life, I hope these stories encourage you. Maybe you're starting a new career. Maybe you're building a business. Maybe you're learning something completely new. Maybe life simply hasn't gone the way you expected. Remember something. Every artist we celebrated today experienced moments when people questioned whether they'd ever return. Some were told their careers were over. Some questioned themselves, yet they continued, step by step, song by song, performance by performance, and eventually they reminded the world exactly who they were. I think there's a lesson in that for all of us. Your greatest achievements may still be ahead of you. Sometimes success doesn't happen according to our timetable. Sometimes it arrives after we've learned the lessons that prepare us for it. Never underestimate what persistence can achieve. One thing I've learned through creating Music Beats Central is that music has an incredible ability to connect people. No matter where we come from, no matter our age, no matter our background, music gives us shared memories. A song can instantly transport us back to a special moment. It can remind us of someone we love. It can help us through difficult days, or it can become the soundtrack to some of life's happiest memories. That's why I believe music is one of the world's greatest storytellers. And that's exactly why I love creating this podcast. Every episode gives us an opportunity to celebrate not just the music, but the people behind it. Before we finish today's episode, I want to thank every one of you for being a part of the MBC fam. Whether you've been listening since episode 1 or this is the very first time you've joined me, thank you. Your support means more than you could ever imagine. Every stream, every subscription, every visit to the Music Beats Central website, every comment, every share, every recommendation to a friend. You're helping this podcast continue to grow into a wonderful community of music lovers from around the world. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. Before we wrap up, don't forget to check out today's featured artists, Natalie Imbruglia, Gabriella Chilmi, The Calling, Ghostly Kisses, and Untamed NC. Please show these incredible artists some support. Visit their websites, follow them on social media, stream their music, watch their videos. Every listener makes a difference. I'm already looking forward to welcoming you back to episode 9 on Music Beats Central. Next time, we'll explore the story behind the world's biggest hit songs. We'll discover the fascinating stories behind some of the most iconic songs ever written. How were they created? What inspired the lyrics? Were they instant hits, or did success come later? Sometimes the stories behind the songs are just as remarkable as the music itself. I can't wait to share that journey with you. Well, that's all for today's episode of Music Beats Central. I hope you've enjoyed this celebration of some of the greatest comeback stories in music history and discovered a few inspiring lessons along the way. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you subscribe to the podcast, left a review on your favorite streaming platform. So we are on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts, and also on Audible. And share this episode with a fellow music lover. You can also stay connected by visiting our website, www.musicbeatcentral.com.au. There you'll find the latest podcast episodes, music stories, artist spotlights, and updates from the world of music. Until next time, keep discovering, keep listening, keep supporting great music, and remember, every great comeback begins with believing that another chapter is still waiting to be written. I am Hanan Iuliano. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Music Beat Central. Much love and ciao for now.